Hola, bienvenidos a otro episodio de The Path of God. En esta ocasión cuento con la presencia de una bailarina que además es terapeuta de movimiento. Ella es Julie Brannen. No sé si estoy pronunciando bien su apellido, la verdad, porque soy muy mala con el inglés. Sin embargo, esta entrevista es precisamente el primer episodio en inglés. Y si entiendes inglés, bueno, vas a entender perfecto a Julie y te podrás reír un poquito de mi mala pronunciación y de mi inglés. Pero bueno, fue la verdad una entrevista muy bonita en la que conectamos con la energía femenina, hablamos de el proyecto que ella tiene para empoderar a las mujeres, también para no solo mujeres, sino todos aquellos que quieran conectar con su energía femenina y con el divino femenino. Hablamos de qué es esto, de qué se trata, y bueno, la verdad es que estuvo maravillosa la entrevista. Los invito a verla en este episodio. Por favor, no olvides suscribirte, darle like y compartirlo. Es de esta manera que me ayudas a seguir creciendo en este podcast. Que tengas excelente día y bueno, muchas gracias por acompañarme. Hi, Julie. Thanks for coming with me. How are you?
I am well. Hi, Katy. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Julie. Well, I'm going to say this in Spanish.
Okay, please.
Es una maravillosa bailarina, es terapeuta, pero además trabaja mucho con la energía femenina. Entonces la invité en esta ocasión para que nos platique un poquito sobre su despertar, sobre su camino espiritual, pero sobre todo sobre las cuestiones de la divinidad femenina. So I just say that I invite you because I really admire your work in spirituality, and I'm amazed how you have grown. When I met you before, you were so different than now. So we start with the first question, that is, who is Julie?
That is true. We met in 2017. Yeah, in
Yeah.
Costa Rica. Yeah.
No, 2000. Before that,
2016?
2015. 2000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You're right. You're right. In Costa Rica.
Yes, in Costa Rica.
Yeah. Who am I? Well, that is the question. Well, I mean, on the, the earthly level, I'm a therapist, a dance movement therapist, a somatic therapist. And so within that, I consider like healing part of my mission here. I'm a dancer and an artist and a choreographer, a director. And in general, I just love connecting with humans and bringing out people's humanity.
That's beautiful, Julie. And well, tell us about your journey, because when I met you, what I remember about you in Costa Rica was this beautiful dancer, like long body, so beautiful that walks like she was floating for days. And when I asked you what you did, you say like, I'm in a company, Nara's company in Chicago, I think. And I did this, and from that, I have seen a very huge change, because right now I see a totally different person, but it's not that one of the other was better. It's just that
Yeah.
I'm different. So how it's been this journey for you?
Yeah, thank you for that witnessing. It's interesting to think back at that time because there has been a transformation. And I know from what I know about this podcast, the focus is spirituality, or how we do connect to spirit. And that was around the time where I would consider the beginning of my spiritual awakening. As it was brought on by some pain and suffering, actually, and then that sort of brought me into a deep experience of transformation over the years. And yeah, I definitely am different now. And there are parts of me that are the same. Yeah, I still love to dance. But yeah, I would say My journey has been a process of self-love, of creating space for emotion, just like allowing myself to feel. It's been accepting and coming into relationship with my own shadow or unconscious, um, which is not easy. It's not easy work to do. It takes a lot of courage, and I had parts of me that were like kicking and screaming, like, no, we don't want to do this.
I know what you mean. I'm in the middle of that right now.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and it's important to name that it's ongoing. Like we're human beings, and I think if I like to think of if I'm not changing, then I'm no longer living, right? I think getting into the right relationship with change, because that's the name of the game. Like, I really don't want to be the same person that I was a year ago, yesterday, So the fact that there has been a change is just a testament, maybe, to the internal work that I've done to get here.
Relationships are very, very good schools.
Oh, yes.
So that leads me to one question. We hear a lot about awakening. In Spanish, it's like the despertar, el despertar. So do you consider yourself you are awake, and why? Or what is awakening for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I don't know. Like, I think in general, for me, spirituality is a way to connect to the mystery, because we don't know. I don't know, all of organized religion. We try to kind of make a relationship with the unknown or the mystery, but in reality, we don't know anything. And there is this sense of awareness of something bigger than me. So, like, my human body, my little container, and then something bigger. So for me, I connect to nature a lot now as a way to connect to things that are bigger than me. And yeah, and I think to be awake means just to have a certain consciousness of that thing that's bigger than us, right? So it's like, it's not just walking down the street and seeing a tree, it's seeing the tree, maybe feeling the tree, knowing that the roots are down, connecting to other trees, and this connection to the sky and the sun. So there's interconnectedness, there's interdependence, there's a sense of reverie, there's a sense of being present with what's in front of me. So I would say I don't know if I'm awake, and I do have this awareness, right? It's this sense of like, there is something bigger than me, and I connect to it often. Yeah, and I think it's just levels of consciousness that we all might have in different times in our life. So like when we met, I definitely wasn't as aware or awake, whatever you want to call it, as I am now. And like I said, there were things that sort of catalyzed or alchemized or transformed in order to get to the place that I am now. And then I'm hoping that in 20 years from now, I'm going to be in a different place, right? It's like a deepening down and also like an expansion upward.
Do you think this awareness, because you know what I love about you, what you said, that I just read a book and they say a really awake person never is going to tell I'm awake.
Yeah.
So I love what you say. I don't know if I'm awake, but I'm aware thereof, and that I love. So do you think that is strength something inside you, like a woman, like a being person? Because I know your work is focused in the feminine divine. We are going to get there in a while, but in this part of you that is the energy that is more like to the feminine, how you feel this process helped you?
Yeah, that's interesting because I'm also in a different place than I was uh, a couple years ago and even in 2015 around that identity. And yes, my awareness of the divine feminine is like this basically the unbridled um, sense of creation. It's this creative energy that flows through the universe, that flows through my body, that flows through your body, every human, every being. And that's incredibly powerful, right? And so it is a connection to that is available. That's where the awareness kind of shifts. It's like, oh, well, this thing that's inside of me exists everywhere, and we all have access to it. And so, yes, as someone who has a womb and has the ability to create in that way, create human life, um, it makes me feel incredibly powerful. Even if I choose to create human life in this lifetime or not, it is this sense of creative energy, this like life force. Um, and I feel like with gender or the outward expression of gender is not relevant to the type of energy. It's really a sense, a felt sense of an internal part of ourselves that it belongs to everyone. It's not necessarily like depending on what gender you are or what body you're in. And that feminine is, yeah, that unbridled sense of creativity. There is a lot of like more surface level, I think, connections to rest or stillness or receptivity. Um, I think in the more shadow parts, people perceive it as over emotional or like chaotic. But I'm like, listen, it's a balance of chaos and order. We need the chaos in order to bring us back into order. And so and I think we might get here, but we need both. And now, of course, there's more than just a binary too. The feminine is these essences, these energies, and then the masculine is other parts, and we definitely have all of them. I think part of it is like knowing when to access these parts of us and when to allow others to sort of take a break. And so I am in a body that has a womb, but what's funny is I've always actually connected more to my masculine. So a lot of my journey was connecting more to the feminine, and it's still my work now of like learning how to rest, learning how to receive, learning how to not think so much and overanalyze and be in the doing, and like connecting my worth to what I produce and what I bring into this world, but more of just softness and a gentleness. And so it's all amorphic and spiralic and less of like, for me in my learning of this, it's less of like, here's feminine over here and here's masculine, but we're all really intertwined and interconnected.
Yeah. I know that everybody has the feminine and the masculine inside. By the way, I'm working more in the masculine because I'm feminine. So I have to work the other side because I'm like very open and but I don't have like these characteristics that has the masculine, that is going for the things and making material things. No? So I'm working on that. So wondering, you explain a little what is the divine feminine, but is something that anybody can connect with? I mean, because the word divine feminine, I was like relation that with only with the woman, but I don't know if the divine feminine or the divine masculine can be awake in anybody, no matter the biological sex or the gender of.
I definitely think it can be in anyone and everyone. And regardless, again, of what body you're in, I think if we want to get really esoteric with it, we can say that we chose as souls to come into a body, right? There is a sort of process of choosing. In some belief systems, this is what they say, right? Is like I chose to come into a body with a womb instead of one without a womb, or like having a birthing body. You could call that a woman. You could, call that, um, depending on how I want to identify. But regardless of the body, right, we definitely have the ability to create. If you don't have a womb, right, you could definitely still create and have that ability, have those characteristics, bring those out, connect to it. And I think that distinction of divine, like what you're saying, is, for me, that's that connection to something bigger than us. Like what I was saying before, it's like divine means something that's sacred, something that is really intentional and beautiful, and a place where we can return to ourselves. And so whatever that is, whether that is a specific spiritual practice or a connection to nature, there is this sense of sacredness. And so the divine is that which is seen as outside of us, but is also within us, right? So as within, so without, as above, so below, those hermetic principles. And so, yeah, I think that's why it's both. It's right, the body that I'm in and access to those energies, and also it is here. It's outside of me. It's inside of me. It's all around. Yeah, and I do think it's definitely available to all of us, depending on not depending on your biological sex. How would you identify someone who is working with that?
Yes.
Um, hmm. Yeah, I think that it would be personal, like a personal journey for whoever is exploring that. But I think some of the qualities, like what we're describing, it could be an exploration of gender, it could be an exploration of creativity or expression. Um, it could be, it's tricky because it's like the language that exists doesn't necessarily really encompass the energy, right? So we're putting words to these things and that automatically limits it, right?
Yes.
And so I can see, so for example, like working with goddesses, right? So this energy of like, it's supposed to be an embodiment of a particular quality of the divine feminine, right? So if we're working with a goddess, they're not only have the typical like qualities of the feminine, but they're also super badass and like maybe have a sense of the masculine within them as well. So there might be a balance. Um, and so it might be at the moment, that personal journey, that moment of like, well, right now I need, for example, so around that time when we met, I think it was a couple years after. Are you familiar with the goddess Kali Ma in the Hindu religion? So the iconic vision of her is, she has skulls of people around her neck. She has like a bloody tongue. There's like this typical rendition of her that is like the warrior. I see her as incredibly masculine, right? But she came to me as a sort of way to work with transformation and fierceness, because I had never incorporated that sense of like, oh, I can be really soft, but I can also be really fierce and protective. And so she came to me in a part of my journey that was like, oh, I need to pull on those qualities right now to help me in my journey, in my process of maybe setting boundaries and saying hell no and saying like enough. there's this fierce, like motherly archetype that she draws upon. So it's like the energy of the archetypes and the bigger consciousness, and then whatever we want to pull from that and bring into our lives. So yeah, I think it might be personal to whatever you need in the moment, whatever you can call in.
Amazing. And you say something that one of the questions I sent you before, because you know people that is looking to this video, and the questions to Julie first, because my English is not very well, thank you. But so I asked you, like, when we talk about the feminine divine, we talk about the goddess, the term goddess, and you said it right now. Yes. What is that term? It's like, what I know is that there's a feminine and a masculine also in the universe.
Yes.
But you can explain a little about that, because we use the word goddess usually to people that we think is powerful, that we think that is like first, like brave, like, and we use it like we use another word without important. But what is a goddess? Why, when we talk about feminine divine, we use that word?
Diosa.
Diosa.
Diosa. It's funny. I was just in Mexico, and I was away from you. I would have loved to see you, but they were calling me. Some of the locals were saying "Que es un diosa," and I was taking it as such a compliment. It was very kind. Yeah, I would say that there's a little bit, it's tricky, right? Because we are human beings, and when we come into this relationship with spirit, there can be like an expansion, and it's so beautiful. But then our ego might step in, and we're like, oh, well, I'm connecting to these goddesses. Am I a goddess? Right? And then thinking that you are a goddess. And so at the core, like, yes, I am an embodiment of the divine, and I am sacred, and I don't think that I'm a goddess, right? Like, it's like moments where I might need that empowerment of like, yes, I feel connected to this, but I am a human being. I'm not, I'm not a deity. But these deities are mythical, right? Or mythological, and they exist for us to connect to. But if someone in their journey really needs that connection of like, yeah, I need to empower myself, like I was saying, I need to bring in these qualities, I need to maybe bring in this fierceness, this compassion, this love, this creativity, then I'm a goddess in that moment. What you mentioned about the dark goddess, that's really important to bring forward, because part of my journey, and like I mentioned, like there was pain that was involved, because not only was I going through things interpersonally, there were situations in my life that were bringing up memories of trauma, or just sort of connecting the dots. It was almost like I was living my life and I was in it, versus I was like scoping back like a cameraman that's like, okay, I'm focused on this one point, but then I have the ability to scope back and see all the events in my life that have led me to this moment, and starting to connect the dots of like, oh, well, this happened because of this, and then this happened because of this. And then not only my journey, but then connecting it to the world and society outside of me. And that was that sense of interconnectedness as part of my awakening, right? / awareness. And part of that was like coming into terms with some pain of myself, of how and particularly some themes around silencing myself, feeling restricted or confined, feeling disempowered, feeling disembodied, feeling like something had been taken from me or stolen, or violations of my own space, my own boundaries, without even knowing, right? It was completely unconscious. And so the consciousness came and the awareness came of like, oh, all of these things happened to me, and here's the wound that I needed to be with. And sometimes that is so painful that we need to call upon help to get us through, right? Like, so help from the universe, help from our own psyche, help from whatever we connect to, right? Whether it is gods or goddesses or spirit or nature or ancestors, right? And that's what I had to do. And part of that learning and part of that journey was recognizing, oh, the wound that I carry is actually a wound that has existed in many people with wombs or women for centuries, since the beginning of time, right? Or not since the beginning, but maybe probably since patriarchy, capitalistic, imperialistic, whatever you want to call it, those systems of oppression have come and continued to vilify and abuse the thing that is feminine, which is the power of creativity. It's like that. I see it as the thing that has been trying to control or bring power over. It's because they're really afraid that they don't have that experience within themselves, or they don't have that ability to access that power within themselves. So they try to control it, they try to steal it or covet it. And that's, yeah. And so it was that connection of my own internal wound and wounding that I might carry from this lifetime or beyond, and then also how that connects to society. And that was part of that awareness of like, wow, this is a lot. And so like calling upon help is really important. And that's where you turn to source, you turn to spirit, because it's like, well, no human can really hold this alone or need help. So I think that answered your question.
And I love what you say, because just like as you know, I'm a dancer, so I just released an NFT collection, and it's called The Prayer. In all the idea is about this. We cannot do this alone. We have to ask for a superior, a higher self, a higher energy that helps us, because it's hard in this human condition to have, to know or to be through all the things that an spiritual awakening or as my other guests before you say, like we are remembering. We are remembering all, and I think it's like when like in the movies, when they remember something, they have amnesia or something, and they remember like what's like an impact in their brains. So I think it's something like that in real life, no?
Yes, absolutely. That's part of what happened to me too, is this remembering, because as it intersects with my work as a therapist, and specifically like working with trauma impacts memory, right? And so for whatever reason that we don't remember it at the time because it's incredibly painful. And so we are able to remember it when we can hold it a little bit better, or our system is able to process it more, instead of if we're children or if we're younger, we're not able to really be with it at that time. And so the memory gets blocked, and it gets stored in our bodies or whatever place that it needs to be safe. And then we develop these protection mechanisms that say that, oh, we have to be a certain way. And so part of that expansion process is like starting to uncover and unpack that process of remembering and bringing back those memories and being with them, feeling them, processing them with someone that we trust and love. And it can be painful because we're reliving that original pain that we hadn't processed before.
You were talking about drama, and that is, I think it's very important that we mention, because people, when we are like asleep, when we are not working in this awareness, sometimes we cannot see that we are hurting not only other people, but ourselves, because all these wounds that we have from the past, from maybe ancestors, I don't know, but how you work like a therapist or like a dance teacher with movement in this, the trauma, how you work with that? How you, what are you learning about working with movement, the trauma? Can you share with us?
Yes, I'm going to try to be succinct because this is literally my master's program. Or I'll just, maybe I'll offer some like themes. But yeah, movement can be incredibly powerful for working with trauma. So for starters, trauma is an experience that is like too much, too fast, too soon. It's too much for our system in the moment. And so, like I said, there's like a way of dissociating or dysregulating. And what I mean by that is our nervous system freaks out, essentially. Like there's this sense of like something is really wrong. This should not be happening. And the nervous system goes into overtime, basically, and it can either respond in certain ways to protect us. And that again gets stored in our bodies, and maybe there are patterns that are developed, whether it's posture or how we hold tension in our muscles, thought patterns that happen. And so over time it gets ingrained in this new way that's like a little bit unhealthy, or it's a little bit like dysfunctional. And so movement serves as a way to not only address the original moment of pain or moment of freak out or dysregulation, and it in general it allows us to be in our bodies, right? It brings us into our bodies, which are only in the present moment. Like my body can't be in the past, it can't be in the future. It has to be, it's right here, right now. So that as a resource of working with trauma is like, okay, well, my mind is going into this memory that might be stored in my body, like what I'm saying, but my body is also safe in this moment. And so that's sort of baseline of the work of resourcing ourselves, saying, okay, I'm not in the past. Some of my parts might be stuck in the past because I went into this dysregulation, but right now I'm safe. Right now I can regulate. Right now I can be in my body and move. Another way that it can serve trauma is, like I was alluding to a little bit before, it's bringing these memories to the surface and working with them, feeling them, all of the emotions that might not have been able to be felt. We feel them in our bodies. We feel emotions and the sensations that go with them, and building the tolerance to be able to feel them, because they can be really intense, especially if they're stuck in the past. For me, my process was a lot around mobilizing a freeze. So like when things would happen to me that were particularly painful, or I would go into dysregulation, it would be more of a freeze response. So I'd like tighten up, or I would feel like I was stuck and I couldn't do anything. And therefore that memory gets frozen at that time. It lives in my body as that freeze response. And then I don't feel like I can move or do anything. So movement serves as a way potentially to bring that out, to move it, to move the energy. The energy gets stuck, and then we bring a new way of moving it through. And it can be that simple, but it tends to be a little bit more complicated because our psyches really protect us. And it can take a long time to build that safety to be able to go into those memories, to be able to go into those experiences.
It's amazing. So, Julie, you were talking about how this awakening and how this awareness of the world, of the other people in ourselves, has to do with recognize a little emotions. So maybe awakening and the trauma is necessary to recognize that emotions or connect in some way.
It's a good question. I would say it's not necessary, but there is, it's like in science where there's a lot of pressure or within a chemical reaction, we're gonna get really nerdy for a second. Hold up, bear with me. There's this catalyst for the reaction, right? So like if you try to get from A to B, then there's something in the middle that is the catalyst to get you there. And so sometimes that does include suffering, but it doesn't necessarily have to. I would say that a lot of the possibility around healing doesn't have to be so intense, or it doesn't have to. But in my experience, like, yes, it does typically go hand in hand. Like if someone experiences trauma, then there's this notion of that is your lesson in this lifetime, or that's something for your soul, quote unquote, to learn and to come back to as a way for you to heal. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think that it's necessary, but it definitely usually is, or it usually goes hand in hand with it. But I definitely, I'm trying to change my mindset, because I used to be like, oh, we have to feel it all, we have to suffer. But like, actually, no, what if we have a little bit more ease? Or what if we do this gently? Or what if it's just we can feel without it being like completely life shattering? So it's something that I'm currently working with in my life.
Yes, I'm working on that.
Yeah.
I think like I heard this just from a therapist that is online in YouTube, and she said like what we live in the childhood doesn't determine who you are in as an adult. So don't let the people say to you that you are damaged or you are, I don't know. And it was powerful for me because I was like, okay, I understand now.
Totally.
I think was amazing. So I doesn't set what we are right now. So something that I think that is so human is from this trauma, from these wounds, from all this process is the fear.
Yes.
So how we can work or work our divine from fear to love. How would you change that? How would you say to somebody that say, I don't want to feel fear anymore. I want to feel love, because I know love is the opposite of fear. So how we work that? How we work our divine from fear to love?
I love this question as like a simple, it's like a sort of like simple transformation, right? That we see. It's like, oh yeah, just turn your fear into love. Like it's that simple, but it's really not that simple. But there are two things that come to mind. The first is that fear serves a purpose, right? There's a reason why we might be afraid. Like I described with trauma, like that is our nervous system trying to indicate that something is wrong, or that we're scanning our environment saying like, am I safe? Am I secure? So fear is actually necessary to survive, or has been necessary to survive. The problem or the dysfunction comes when if we're constantly in that state of fight or flight or hyper focus or hyper vigilance, right? That it takes over our lives and we're not able to function or have experience other emotions. the idea is we want a range, right? We want a full spectrum of emotion. So my first thought is like fear isn't bad. Fear is like it's needed as a human experience. And I would also say that love is the antidote really for everything. If we were to sum it up, love is the most important thing in the universe. And I think instead of sort of like going from here to here, I like to think about it as like love encompassing, or like love being the balm or the blankets or the cradle in which that holds the fear. So what if we're not saying to the fear like you need to go away, like you're annoying or whatever it is. It's the love that's able to hold it and say, oh darling, I understand that you're afraid, and it's okay. It's okay that you're afraid. Tell me how you're afraid, right? Tell me all the ways in which you are feeling this way. And so it is a powerful way to access compassion for ourselves, and yeah, to sort of move into the heart space.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about love, but it seems like it's something hard to work with, because I think like it's easier to fear and it's easier to hate that work with love. And I don't know, it's what I look. And something I observe is that the most important love is the self-love. Because if you don't love yourself, you can, they say like that, like a commercial or advertising, like if you don't love
Right.
yourself, it's true.
Yeah.
When so many involves, and as I see from side is like empowering women, empowering the feminine, empowering. Can you tell us about this project, how it works, how, because you have also a podcast, I know. Yes, talk us about.
There was a little bit of a disruption in the sound. You were saying she-wolf? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'd love to talk about it. My latest addition to the wolf clan on my arm is healing.
Wow.
But I have just got this on Friday, like extra color.
Wow.
It's got some second skin on it right now, but
yes.
Got a moon.
Spring in we always when we met instead say hi, we say hi.
Oh really? Oh, I love it. Yeah. Yeah, we need to howl. Yes.
Yeah.
So She-Wolf has been sort of my externalization of all of this internal work that I've been describing. It's a way for me to not only connect to my own transformation, but to connect to other people, create community around a similar intention, a similar resonance with the type of work. And by the work, I mean people that are interested in healing, people that are interested in transformation. And yeah, because my journey has been so specific around like anti-oppression, empowerment, embodiment, healing, that's what we do. So we create experiences and conditions in which we can express ourselves, we can create together or alone, we can come together with a common mission, and we are stronger together. And so that is the medicine of the wolf, right? It's like the pack mentality. It's this idea of rewilding ourselves. I know that I have gone through a sense of like, how have I become so domesticated? You know, how have I become so like, even my thought process and even my approach to relationships or my approach to my work has become so confined or or oppressed in its own way, you know, and whether that's colonization or other harmful systems that have like infiltrated my being. It's like, how did I get here? Oh, I have to rewild. I have to remember. Here we are with the remembering again of what I'm actually, what is authentic, what is more free, what is more of a full expression of who I am. And the wolf is a great metaphor for that, because the medicine of the wolf is obviously the beautiful creature that is in the wild, that is fierce, that is also loving, that is very loyal, that is a leader, and also knows how to follow. It's all of these energies and these parts that we can access. And so it's funny because it's like we were talking about goddesses before, but I find that animals can be just as spiritual, or just as like that essence we can call upon, and they walk with us, they walk along with us, and that connection to nature is huge. There's a sense of like, oh well, we come from the same earth, we are here together, we are interconnected, we might be different species, but we do have this connection of consciousness. So it started from that, and then it's grown into a lot of different projects, a lot of different experiences, which you've been a part of, and it's been amazing. Yeah, and we're currently going through like a transition into, during the pandemic we did, which is still going on, but we did a virtual series, which is what you participated in, all the way from Monterey. Yeah. And that was amazing because we were able to connect to people all over the world. And so we're sort of seeing like, what's the next step? Do we want to do more performance that's virtual? Do we want to do in person? What's safe and what feels aligned? But we're in a process of figuring that out.
I love that thing you say, like about working in a pack. Yes. The work in a pack, because I have this company, you know, the Pájaro Artesénico, is that company that finished with the pandemics anyway, but we like a clock. We always say like, is clock the right word?
A flock?
A clock. Yes, like
yeah.
So we always say we work like a flock, because we work following each other, and we work together. And I think like what you said is like so deep in me. Like, yes, it's like a sisterhood. It's like a work for make the other shine, because see 3 or 3 times, 2 times also, because you are with them. Yes. It's like something so deep for me. And just something that is very interesting, that we are like, don't you say ourselves, don't?
Domesticated?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how we can balance the fierce and the soft side of the feminine? How we can balance that, because I know when we are so fierce, we can be like Kali, like the goddess you say is Kali, right? The
Kali, yes, yeah.
That is eating people, and I don't know, we can be fierce, really fierce, but we can put something also. So how would you suggest somebody that wants to balance both sides?
Yeah. Well, I can share about my experience, and then that hopefully could provide some sort of inroad. But I connect to the elements a lot. So fire, water, earth, air, and then space or ether, the thing that holds us all. And so not that each element has like a specific quality, but I do tend to connect to more earth and grounding if I want to be in a sense of softness. Like there's a yielding that happens in my body, or a letting go or release if it's available to me. I also connect to water, where there's specific types of water, like a gentle flowing, the quality of the water that could be more flowing, and because water does just take the shape of whatever container it's in. So like imagining like soft rain, or connecting to this beautiful lake. So I live right by Lake Michigan. And sometimes the waves are really fierce, right? Like what we're talking about. And sometimes they're just really gentle. And so knowing that I have that range, I can start to tune into the specific type of quality that the water has. And then in general, fire tends to be pretty fierce for me. So like fire connecting to the element of like transformation, there's just this like heat, this fierceness, um, this like playfulness. And so whether it's getting the actual element in my space, it's like, or going into nature, like what I was saying, of being next to a body of water, or lighting a candle, or because I do dance with fire, there is that physical fire in front of me. So that's a way to sort of be in relationship to it, and then see how I can bring that into my body or breathe with it. And again, there is this like sense of I'm not separate from it, but I am feeling my own being, and then the being of this element, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And well, I don't want to take more of your time, but just one last question.
Yeah.
What do you suggest to somebody that wants to connect to the divine feminine, that feels that there is disconnect and wants to approach that side? What would you suggest to that person that wants to do that?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what I would say the first thing that came to mind is the moon. So like connecting to the moon and cycles of the moon. Because again, I think the feminine is the keeper of cycles, and the tracking of that cycles within ourselves and cycles within nature. And so track the moon, like start working with the full moon, the new moon, and then everything else in between. And then noticing how you feel in relationship to the moon. Because we are mostly made of water, right? And the moon has this gravitational pull with the earth. Because I don't know if you know this, but this is another nerdy moment, that the moon actually came out of the earth. Like way back, thousands of years at the beginning, there was this, and I'm pretty sure I'm recalling this correctly, but the moon was sort of a part of the earth, and there was a meteor, some sort of impact, and the moon disconnected or created its own celestial body, and that's why it has this gravitational pull.
Wow.
So that's why we have this connection to the moon, right?
Yeah.
And and so we're made of water. The moon has a connection to water. So just notice that. I think that the moon, and many cultures over time have seen the moon as a goddess, or the feminine, essentially, the feminine aspect. So that could be a good place to start. I have a ton of books. If people like to read, I can give you suggestions of books. But yeah, anything in nature that you resonate with, whether it is a tree or mushrooms or little like creepy crawlies or birds, anything that you feel like you resonate with, just start there and track like how you feel. Journal. Notice if you're receiving any messages, or like listening, like deep listening. Get really still, take deep breaths. All those are a good place, good entryways.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome, Kathy. Thank you for inviting me.
Happy New Moon in Libra, by the way.
Yes. New moon, yeah, new moon.
Recording this in new moon, so it's gonna be amazing.
Yes.
Thank you very much. If somebody wants to contact you, do you have any Zoom therapies? You can do therapy by Zoom or
I
something?
can, yeah, I can do virtual sessions. I can send you my website if you want to put that, and it can find me online, and or ask me any questions. You can send me a message. I'm very open.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos por acompañarnos. Gracias.
Mucho gusto. Gracias.
Always I love you.
Yes, te amo. I love you too.
Te amo mucho.